Facebook, Twitter, Amazon, Disney, doesn't matter which big tech firm you work for or a tiny startup. You've either just been laid off or are on tenterhooks. Your food is more expensive, your fuel is more expensive. Inflation is through the roof and growth looks grim. And it doesn't matter where you are, US, UK, Europe, India, China, things are bad everywhere. And I know there are lots of factors that are affecting this. We can't blame the US Fed for everything, but we can blame them a great deal for the way they've tackled inflation. Here's a quick snapshot of what happened. The US went overboard during the COVID crisis, pumped too much money into the economy. The stock markets soared, FII money flew into emerging markets, retail investors had a party even though things were so bad outside. Tech stocks rose, inflation started rising, but the US still kept buying bonds. Inflation in the US went from 2 to nearly 8%. And now what do we have? Tempered tech, a funding winter, and massive layoffs. As leaders of the free world, United States of America, we did expect you to do a lot better. Once upon a time, in a world that was COVID-free, where companies flourished, people got promotions, growth was high, and the going was good. The US was actually in pretty good shape at the end of 2019. The economy grew by 2.3% that year. Unemployment was at a 50-year low at 3.5%, and payrolls rose by 136,000. China was doing well too. China says its economy grew by 6.1% in 2019. Growth in India and the EU was tempered, but broadly the global economy was doing okay. On January 30th, 2020, the WHO declared COVID-19 a global health emergency. And after that, once world governments decided it was time for massive lockdowns, COVID-19 badgered us all and on all fronts: health, economy, education. 115 million people were pushed into extreme poverty because of COVID-19 in 2019. How did the governments respond to this? What did people do? They pumped money like crazy into the economy. Billions of dollars in stimulus packages, quantitative easing, forgivable loans aka free money, emergency credit lines, moratoriums. The US Fed's initial gambit worked. With a $2.2 trillion stimulus bill, stocks recovered, bond markets stabilized, and household budgets were strengthened. But then the US government added fuel to the fire. In December 2020, Congress passed a $900 billion relief package. In March 2021, Congress passed yet another relief bill, this time $1.9 trillion. And then the Fed added $3 trillion to their balance sheet through long-term bond purchases. So what's the problem? Well, they went overboard. Jerome Powell's initial target for inflation for the US was slightly above 2%. Today, it's at 7.75%. And look at all the layoffs. These are partly due to the US Fed's actions, tech optimism, and Musk's stupidity. The US Fed overcompensated during COVID, therefore contributed to inflation, and now people are acting as if they're prepping for a recession. Powell was acting like he was tackling the next great recession, but COVID didn't turn out like that. In fact, in the US, the recession lasted 2 months. And the economy broke down not because financial institutions were insolvent, but because world leaders decided it was now time to shut down entire countries. The second mistake that the US Fed made is that they thought the inflation would be short-lived. They kept buying bonds even in early 2022 when inflation reached nearly 8%. It's only in March 2022, when the Fed finally decided it was time to do something, they moved forcefully and they increased Fed fund rates by 3% in 6 months. And now they're going overboard. The goal is, of course, now to reduce inflation and, save the economic buying power of the average American, but what about rest of the world? I know it's all easy in hindsight, and I can sit here and point fingers at whoever I want to. But the truth is, y'all went to Princeton. I didn't. And if you continue to act like this, you will push the US into a full-blown recession. And I'm not saying this. The Atlantic is. And I wouldn't care so much if the US kicked itself in the foot. You do you. But the problem is that the US is so large and has such a huge impact that we can't help but care. If as the US Fed that Putin controls the gas prices, the war affects wheat prices, China's zero COVID policies inadvertently cause supply chain shocks, then why are you going so hard after inflation? And at what cost? Is it worth hammering the tech stocks? Is it worth devaluing foreign currencies? Is it worth causing so many job losses? That's it from me. I'll see you next time.